Assalamu alaikum. Let's start with the new chapter, fluid kinematics. Previously, we have discussed fluid at rest, which is much simpler case as there are no shear stresses produced. But when we are dealing with fluid in motion, we know when the fluid comes in contact with the solid boundary, there is change of velocity. And whenever there is change of velocity, shear stresses are produced. We know fluid moves from one place to other because of change of pressure or elevation. Thus, its motion is controlled by effect of inertia and the shear stresses. So such cases become much difficult to be analyzed mathematically, and it becomes necessary to supplement it with experimentation. Generally, we also idealize a fluid. As you're aware, ideal fluid is that which is non-viscous and incompressible, while real fluid is actually viscous and compressible. So we are going to discuss different type of fluids and different types of flows. In types of fluid, we mean ideal or real fluid, incompressible or compressible fluid. But in type of flows, we have different type of flows defined. Uniform flow or non-uniform flow, steady or unsteady flow, laminar or turbulent flow, rotational or irrotational flow, supercritical or subcritical flow. We are going to see them one by one in a little while. Before that, we must discuss some basic definitions. Path line. If an individual particle of fluid is colored or otherwise rendered visible, which is to trace its position at successive intervals of time from a given point. Streak line. If instead of coloring an individual particle, the flow pattern is made visible by injecting a stream of dye into a liquid or smoke into a gas, the result will be a streak line or filament line, which gives the instantaneous picture of the position of all the particles which have passed through the particular point at which dye is being injected. So let's look at this first figure. We have a stream of liquid where the fluid is in motion, and we have developed a station on which we have injected 4 dyes of different color: blue, green, red and yellow. And at time t0 we have the position known, and we're going to determine the position at time t1, t2, t3 and t4. So the particle is being located after some time as a particle moves in a stream. So a line joining from a starting position to all the relative positions till the last, and then the arrowhead, this is known as a path line. So similarly, a path line of all the particles is being developed. Streak line will be if the dye is injected at one section, and after some time a line joining in the relative position of all the particle after some time, like at t0 all these dyes were at control station, but at time t1 the yellow, red, green and blue were at these relative positions. So a line joining the new position will be known as streak line. So if you look at this right of figure, we have time on this vertical axis, this one on the horizontal axis, and the originally particle were at the origin, but after some time their trajectory was such that we have the particle over here. So a line joining from the origin to this new position of the particle, it will be known as path line, while a line joining the new position of all the particles, it will be known as streak line. Streamline is an imaginary curve in the fluid across which at a given instant there is no flow. Thus the velocity of every particle along the streamline is tangential to it at that moment. Since there can be no flow through solid boundary, these can also be regarded as streamlines, or vice versa. Streamlines can be recorded as a solid boundary, since it is not allowing any flow to pass through it. For a continuous stream of flow, the streamlines will be continuous line extending to infinity. As we know, streamlines are parallel lines. So fluid, if it is a continuous fluid, the streamlines will be extending in any direction, in the upstream direction or in the downstream direction, or will form closed curve, as for example around the surface of a solid object immersed in a flow. So if we have any solid object placed within the flow, then it is possible that streamline will go around that object and form a closed curve. If the conditions are steady, we're going to see the steady condition little while, and the flow pattern does not change from moment to moment, path line and streamline will be identical. Yes, this could be the case. The streamline and path line are identical. For example, in the case of a water through a water tap. But when the flow is fluctuating, this will not be the case, like you have seen previously. Stream tube is a series of streamlines which are drawn through every point on the perimeter of a small area of a stream cross section, thus forming a stream tube. Since there is no flow across the streamline, the fluid inside the stream tube cannot escape through its walls and behave as if it were contained in an imaginary pipe. This is a useful concept in dealing with flow of a large body of fluid, since it allows elements of the fluid to be isolated for analysis. Let's see this first figure. These blue lines, they represent the streamlines, and velocity at every instant is tangential to that point. So this velocity at every point is shown with this red head in these three coordinate axes, x, y, z. This blue is a streamline and velocity is tangential to it, and you can see the components of velocity as u, v, w in three coordinate axes. On this side we have a stream tube. Stream tube is for a small area. If we draw streamlines on its perimeter, so it will actually form a stream tube, and it is acting like a pipe because no flow can occur across a streamline. So no flow will pass through this stream tube, and all the fluid contained within the stream tube will always remain within it. So this concept is actually very helpful for analyzing large systems. Steady flow is that type of flow in which fluid characteristics like velocity, pressure, density at a point do not change with time. Thus, mathematically, it can be written as change of velocity with change in time at a given instant, like fixed position x naught, y naught, z naught in the three coordinate axes. So change of velocity with change in time is 0. Similarly, change of pressure with change in time and density with time is 0. But the type of fluid in which change of velocity, pressure, density at a point is not equal to 0, it will be known as unsteady flow. In practice, there will always be slight variation of velocity and pressure, but if the average values are constant, the flow is considered to be steady. So let's consider a stream, and let's take two sections. Let's say the section 1 is at x1 and section 2 is at x2. So an observer, it visits the first site at let's say early in the morning at 8 o'clock, and he takes observation for velocity, pressure, density, and later on for the same site, similarly at the other section, a second observer, he can go and take the observations at the same time, and later on at like for hourly, he takes the measurement. So and they track the record. If the velocity, pressure and density, it is not changing with time at the first section, it will be considered as steady flow. Similarly, the velocity is not changing at the second section over the time, it will be called as steady flow, irrespective of a change variation of velocity at these two sections, which are some distance apart. So uniform flow is that type of flow in which velocity at a given instant do not change with respect to space. So mathematically it can be written as change of velocity with change in s. S is for space distance at a given instant is 0. So let's consider a stream again, and let's take two sections. These sections are s distance apart, and the observer takes velocity measurement at a given instant, like at 8 o'clock. The observer can go to these two sections and take velocity measurement. If the velocity at these two sections is same, then it will be called as uniform flow. This will occur when the cross section size is same, right? But if the velocity at a given instant changes with respect to space, it will be called as non-uniform flow. Flow is described as uniform if the velocity at a given instant is same in magnitude and direction at a given point in the fluid. In practice, when a fluid flows past a solid boundary, there will be variation of velocity in the region close to the boundary. However, if the size and shape of the cross section of the stream of the fluid are constant, the flow is considered to be uniform. There could be four possibilities of a combination of steady and unsteady and uniform and non-uniform flow. Let's see first as steady uniform flow. When the condition they will not change with position or time, it will be called steady uniform flow. The velocity and cross-sectional area of a stream of fluid are same at each cross-section. For example, flow of a liquid through a pipe of uniform bore running completely full at constant velocity. Steady non-uniform flow, where condition do not change with time but changes with position. The velocity and cross-sectional area of stream may vary from cross-section to cross-section, but for each cross-section they do not vary with time. For example, flow of a liquid at a constant rate through a tapering pipe running completely full. Because of change of area, the velocity will be changed, so it is non-uniform flow. But because it is running full of water, it will be steady flow. Unsteady uniform flow. At a given instant of time, the velocity at every point is same, but this velocity will change with time. For example, accelerating flow of a liquid through a pipe of uniform bore running full, such as would occur when a pump is started up. So whenever a valve is closed or open, or when a pump is started, or so any such change will actually cause the flow to be unsteady. But as it is of uniform cross section, so it will be uniform flow because velocity is constant at each section. Unsteady non-uniform flow. The cross-sectional area and velocity vary from point to point and also change with time. For example, a wave traveling along a channel. So generally all the cases are unsteady and non-uniform flow. Laminar and turbulent flow. Laminar flow is defined as that type of flow in which fluid particles move along well-defined path or streamlines, and all the streamlines are straight and parallel. Thus, the particle move in laminars or layers, gliding smoothly over the adjacent layer. This type of flow is called streamline flow or viscous flow. So, we can also say that streamline flow is a laminar flow type. Turbulent flow is that type of flow in which fluid particles move in zigzag waves, irregular manner. So due to the movement of fluid particle in a zigzag way, the eddies formation take place which are responsible for high energy losses. For pipe flow, the type of flow is determined by non-dimensional number Vd over mu, which is called Reynolds number. If Reynolds number is less than 2000, the flow is laminar. If Reynolds number is greater than 4000, the flow is turbulent. And if it is in between 2000 and 4000, it may be laminar or turbulent. Now in this figure, this is actually the experimental setup by the scientist Reynolds, in which he had a container in which he carried water, and then a system assembly such that he could inject a dye into the pipe which is attached to this container. So he is actually going to study the particles which are flowing inside this pipe, and a valve is to control the discharge of volume through this outlet. So he actually studied the flow, the path line taken by the particles in this pipe, and during his own experimentation he found out that Reynolds number could remain up to 50,000 and the flow was still laminar. So, but later on, based on most of the experimentation result, he concluded with this threshold limits that if it is less than 2000, the flow is laminar. If it is greater than 4000, it is turbulent, and in between it is transitional flow. So Reynolds number is a non-dimensional number. That means it is unitless, where V, capital V, is the velocity of the particle, d is the diameter of pipe, and mu is the dynamic viscosity of liquid. Rotational and irrotational flow. So that type of flow in which fluid particles, while moving along the streamline, also rotate about their own axis is known as rotational flow. While where the fluid particles move along the streamline do not rotate about their own axis, it is irrotational flow. Now it is seen that the flow closer to the boundary wall where the velocity is reducing, the flow type changes to rotational flow type, where the fluid particles while moving forward, they are also rotating about their own axis. While above the this boundary layer region, we observe a rotational flow type where the particles are only moving forward without any rotation. We know ideal fluids are those which are non-viscous and incompressible, and the real fluids are viscous and compressible. If we consider a circular cross-section of a pipe, we often idealize the velocity profile to be uniform, while in case of real fluids, we know when the fluid particle they come in contact with the solid boundary, the velocity approaches to zero, and we get a parabolic shape of a velocity profile along its cross section. This is a vertical distribution. Similar will be its horizontal distribution. All fluids are compressible. However small it may be, to some extent they are all compressible. Because liquids are very hard to compress, so generally we treat them as incompressible for all the cases of steady flow. However, in unsteady flow condition, high pressure difference can develop and compressibility of fluid must be taken into account. Gases, they are easily compressed, and except when the changes of pressure, and therefore the density are very small. The effect of compressibility and changes of internal energy must be taken into account. Discharge and mean velocity. Discharge or flow rate is defined as the total quantity of flowing fluid in unit time past any particular cross section of a stream. For liquids or incompressible fluids, discharge is volume flow rate. Volume per unit time, its units are meter cube per second or liters per second. For gases or compressible fluid, as volume may change, so we prefer to take weight. So weight per unit time, and its units are kgf per second or newtons per second. For a flow through a pipe, we can use continuity equation which states discharge is area into velocity, where V is for velocity. So in many problems, the variation of velocity over the cross section can be ignored, the velocity being assumed to be constant and equal to mean velocity. So we are generally taking mean velocity, which is discharge over area. The principle of conservation of mass, it states that the mass of fluid entering a controlled volume is equal to mass of fluid leaving the controlled volume. So matter is neither created nor destroyed. Let's consider a pipe whose at section 1 the area is A1, velocity U1, density ρ1, and at section 2 area A2, velocity U2 and density ρ2. As we know, mass is density into volume, and so if we are finding out mass entering per unit time, so we get density into volume over time. Volume can be converted to area into length, and length over time is velocity. So we get density into area into velocity. So rho1 del A1 U1 at section 1. Similarly, mass leaving per unit time at section 2 is rho2 del A2 U2. As we know, for the steady flow, these two must be constant. And as we are considering the partial area for this small section at this section 1, so if we consider the total area of section 1, we have to convert it to A1. Similarly, del A2 will be converted to capital A2, and we need to consider the mean velocity. So U1 is converted to U1 bar and U2 is converted to U2 bar. And as as we are considering for the whole cross section, so this is equal to m dot, which is mass flow rate. And as the properties of the fluid flowing through the pipe is same, as the density is same, so rho1 is equal to rho2, so it's cancel out. So we can write it like this: area into velocity of section 1 is equal to area into mean velocity of section 2, which is equal to q, which is mass flow rate. Let's solve some numerical problems. Air flows between two parallel plates which are 80 mm apart. The following velocities were determined by direct measurement. Plot the velocity distribution curve and calculate the mean velocity. Distance from one plate is given 0, 10, 20 till 80 mm till the second plate, and at interval of 10 we have the velocities in meter per second. So firstly we will have to draw the velocity distribution curve. So for that we have the one plate and the other plate which is 80 mm apart. We will have to take velocity on the horizontal axis and distance between the plates on the vertical axis, as we have already given the data. So we are going to plot the points. So at 10 mm we have velocity 23, at 20 mm we have velocity 28, at 30 we have 31 velocity, and 40 mm from the one plate we have 32 velocity. So similarly, so joining all the points we will get velocity distribution curve. So one part is done. Now we have to calculate the mean velocity. Mean velocity we know is discharge per unit area, and the area is actually as the flow is uh, across this between these two plates. So we will have to take the cross sectional area, cross section area between the two plates. So length of the plates is known, but the width is unknown. We're not knowing the width, so the area is length, which is the distance between the two plates, and into the width. So discharge per unit area, so we get discharge per unit length into width. So we can take this width to the numerator. We will get discharge per unit width divided by length, which is distance between the plates. We can also convert discharge per unit width into this discharge is area into velocity. Area is length into width into velocity divided by width. Width cancel out, we get length into velocity, which is distance between the plates into velocity. So this is what we need to calculate: distance between the plates into velocity. This can be simply computed if we take area under the curve. As we know, if we take the area under the curve, it will be the product of velocity into distance. This can be done by using mid-ordinate rule. Mid-ordinate rule states that divide the whole area into number of strips, as we have done this yellow strip and then beige strip, then yellow, beige, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have divided into 8 strips. The ordinates are known to you. I have to determine the mid-ordinate. Mid-ordinate can be determined by taking average of the two extremes. So 0 plus 23 divided by 2. I'll get 11.5. Then multiply it by the width of the strip, which is 10 millimeter. Then do it for all the strip. So 23 plus 28 divided by 2, which is 25.5, multiply by width of the strip, 10 millimeter. As the width of the strip in our case is constant, so we can simply take the average value of all these strips and then multiply it by the uniform width of each strip. 10 millimeter converted to meter, so we have multiplied by 0.01. So mean velocity is area under the curve divided by the distance between the plates, which is 80 millimeter. So 80 millimeter is converted to 0.08. So 0.01 divided by 0.08 is simply 8. So we get the answer as 22.375 meter per second. Let's solve the second numerical. Water flows from A to D and E through series pipeline shown in the figure. Given the pipe diameter, velocities and flow rate below, complete the tabular data. So for the first pipe, AB pipe, the diameter is known, it is 50 millimeter. Velocity and discharge are not known, but whole discharge enters into a larger diameter pipe BC, whose velocity and diameter are known, 2 meter per second and 75 millimeter. We have to find out the discharge. As we know that the discharge in the pipe AB is equal to discharge in the pipe BC. So we're going to make use of this simple connection. Q1 is equal to Q2, and Q1 is A1 V1 and Q2 is A2 V2. So simply use that relationship. We have 3 known, 1 unknown. It could be found out in that way. Then as you can see, the BC pipe, it bifurcates into 2, CD and CE, and the relationship is given that discharge Q3 is 2 times Q4 or Q4 is half of Q3. As we know, now in this case, Q2 discharge is dividing into Q3 and Q4. So simply our equation will be Q2 is equal to Q3 plus Q4. So Q2 is A2 V2, Q3 is A3 V3 and Q4 is A4 V4. Knowing the Q2 and knowing the relationship of Q3 and Q4, plug in all the values and compute the unknowns. I believe you can do it yourself. So that's all for today.